Okay, so welcome back to another episode. You all know what you are letting yourselves in for. If you've clicked the link to come and watch, then you already know. But here, I mean, oh God. Just when you thought it was safe to stop talking about this and let everyone involved move on with their lives, and us poor YouTubers, not that I would class myself as that, but people who speak about the topic, good Lord, what is happening? Hello to Inez, hello Alex, good evening, hope you're all keeping well. Miss Riffraff's here, how you doing? Fabulous to see you all, albeit virtually, but there we are. As you can no doubt guess from my demeanour, I'm not best pleased. I'm not best pleased about looking at this video. I'm not. Not for the the intellectual puzzle that it may or may not create. That I always welcome the opportunity to sharpen the proverbial axe. However, I'm not best pleased about looking at this because just for the both of them, I just wanted to go in my most English accent possible. Love, love. Just pack it in. Just pack it in. Right? That's what I wanted. But, you know, we gotta keep the open mind. I haven't watched any of the footage again, just mostly out of kind of stamping my foot down on the floor. No, I'm not doing it. Can't watch anymore. Because Miss Brederhoft's nearly put me off the whole thing. But I've seen a few articles. I mean, they're known for bias anyway. But it would indicate that this this is going to be more of the carnival that she gave as part of the trial. So what we can do here already is set our understanding of the context, right? This is a one-on-one interview on the Today Show, which, to the best of my knowledge, is a morning show. I don't know if it is, but to the best of my knowledge, it's a morning show. So some of the topics that came up as part of the trial may not be spoken about here. Sorry, I've just noticed Alex's comment. Yeah, it won't stop. Miss Riffraff, yeah, no, it won't stop her while the spotlight's on her at all. Absolutely, it won't. And Alex, yeah, me too. But now you can go in the most splendid English accent. What a load of bollocks. Yeah. Well, like I'm saying, at this stage, I'm gonna keep my my objectivity in place because, you know, all of this evidence that Miss Brederhoft said there may come out. I would imagine you guys at this stage know more than I do because you've probably watched it. So no spoilers in the comments, please. Let's just go through this in the standard fashion and see what absolute chaos we're letting ourselves in for. But however, so the context, some of the topics won't be spoken about. She will have had more coaching. She will. So there will be prepared responses to things like why didn't they believe you? Things like her violence against him. Things like what else came up? Her crying, her performing, this kind of thing, right? So that if these are the topics that start to come forth, and she has an immediate response to them, we can start to build towards our evidence, if you want to think of it that way, of prepared responses, in this area. So I really don't want to do it. Fine. Here we go. Let's have a look and see what ye old Herdface McGee has been up to recently. Good Lord. Yeah, so For those who are regular to these streams, the idea I had about the sound is only something that I can play with as we go. So make of that as you will.
It's been about more than a week since the verdict. As you sit here with me now, has it sunk in?
How could it? Surreal and difficult. In part, yes. This has been a long time coming.
Do you stand?
Okay. Okay. So this is just going to be nothing more than a continuation of the context, right? A continuation of that. So we've got a couple of big old lights right in each of their faces. Relatively comfy chairs, it looks like. So we can start to put together a time frame for the likelihood of movement based on fatigue. In that way, the likelihood of movement based on inhibition causing fatigue, and therefore the subsequent fallout after the fact. Okay, but right, what we've got initially is the masks of exasperation, which one would expect in a normal circumstance when something devastating has happened to you. Has it sunk in? How could it? Right? How could it sink in? So you could make the argument initially, right from here, from the get-go, that she's in a damned if she does, damned if she doesn't kind of scenario in terms of moving at this particular stage. But we know that is where she is in here, regardless of which side of the masquerade line that it falls on at this particular stage, because we're only a couple of seconds in, bear in mind. This is the kind of information that we would have to use to qualify some of the further things that we see and hear and everything else that goes on after the fact.
And by your testimony and your accusations against Johnny Depp about abuse.
Of course, to my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony. I think vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. I think that this trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok, and the jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not? I think even the most well-intentioned juror.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Right. So let's point this out right from the get-go. This is it's cut up. So it doesn't appear to be, as the title of the video would indicate, full interview. It's not. Right? So let's cut that out right from the get-go. So there's some information that's going to be here that we won't be privy to. And so any comments that we make about this moving forward from here can only be based on what we see in this and nothing more, right? Any further data that we get that's been cut out of it would either bolster opinions that we develop after the fact or cause us to question them further. And they should, because this is information that's been just cut out of the narrative for whatever reason. Okay? But what we did see was the link towards her emotional state. Fair dues, if you look at the verbal content, stand by these words to your dying day, or whatever she said to that effect. Stand by those words to her dying day. Okay? Fair enough. On paper, as a sentiment, that is powerful. On paper, as a sentiment, that is something that you feel on a cellular level, almost, right? And yet we heard nothing like that. We heard nothing towards that kind of engagement, towards that kind of passion, which could be due to the inhibitions she's placing on herself. There's a sense of control, a sense of restraint. Hey, Eric's here! Great to see you, mate. I've not seen you for ages. Thanks for sharing all of this stuff continually. I've been loving some of the stuff you've been doing with the legal guy. I forget his name, but Forgive me, that's honest. I forgot his name. But you know the videos I'm talking about. Guys, if you're unfamiliar with Eric's work, go over and check him out. He puts together some great videos, and he's an awesome bloke to boot. Anyway, so this is what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to break down the precise nature of precisely what we're seeing in these particular moments. And what we're seeing in these particular moments is control. Now, the control could be for one of two reasons in this particular situation and scenario put together, I guess. It could be down to the training that she's had, the coaching that she's had ahead of time. Given if she does have such a hatred towards social media, she won't want to see any more of those "my dog stepped on a bee" kind of videos, right? Or it could be the forcible control that she's putting on herself in this moment to stop further things from leaking out. These are two ideas that we have to move forward with in this moment. But it links back towards the moments of where she's giving her opinion on the jurors in that particular scenario, and where she is in her head. She's looking down her nose at them. How could she not? From that particular position. The only time people do that from a biological, from an anatomical perspective, is when you're looking to alter your vision, right? I'm getting to the stage now where I might have to wear bifocals. I don't currently at the minute, but I've got two separate prescriptions, and when I'm wearing my computer glasses versus my normal everyday glasses that are over there are some times where I have to do this to focus on what I'm seeing in the distance, because after looking at a computer for so long, my eyes become tired, and that's the only way I can see these things clearly half of the time. So, there is no biological, anatomical imperative for this particular movement here other than an emotional state. Right? And the emotional states that link to this, when you talk about from a physical perspective, when you look at the body from a thermodynamic perspective, when the chin moves back, what does that give rise to? It gives rise to more energy here and more engagement in the back area, which you get in magnanimous people, which you get in confident people, which you get in arrogant people, which you get in hierarchical viewpoints, those who think they're better than you. It's not contemptive. There's far too much ambiguity when it comes to contempt. If you look at the research, some of it within the contempt field has never been peer reviewed, ever, right? But these particular stages, when you are getting rid of all of the elements that it can't be, right? It's you eliminate the impossible, and whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And then look at what that leads to within the body. We get a further understanding of what's happening from there. So, I've started from the beginning. I'm quite intrigued with how you're going to see this. Oh, Jane. I think I've already got a tension headache. I haven't, just to qualify that.
It would have been impossible to avoid this. Every single day I passed for 3, 4, sometimes 6 blocks, city blocks lined with people holding signs saying, "Burn the witch," "Death to Amber." After 3.5 weeks, I took the stand and saw just a courtroom packed.
Whoever cut this video up, I need you to go back to school and make a calmer narrative. I realize people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right? But as the objective viewer in this particular stage, that's what you need to do.
Full of Captain Jack Sparrow fans who were vocal, energized.
Can you put into words?
Oh, okay. So, we covered this before, right? We covered this before on, I believe it was the video that me and Adam did with Camille and Ben. When you look at the amount of fans that are there with their signs and everything else going on, great. So what? Right? The juror's job is to look at the information. If you want to be as reductionistic as you possibly can be about the whole scenario, it's not to go, well, I saw Cry Baby when I was a kid. Brilliant film. I mean, I didn't like it, but it's neither here nor there, right? That's not their job. For them to bring personal biases into whatever room it is that they have to talk about the kind of information in, they have to justify their opinion. And if you can't justify your opinion based on the evidence that you're seeing, then it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Right? So, regardless of how many people you are passing on a day-to-day basis, the jury is not passing these people. They got sent home as we found out some days for the weekend and whatnot. But and again, don't know the legal term for it, but they are interviewed, they are questioned about some of the things that they've seen, things that they haven't, and objectivity, and all of this, right? Because you want a fair and legal trial in the best way that they possibly can, and this was done at every step of the way based on the information that we, as the ignorant public, are allowed to know, right? So, when you look at numbers based on details, it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. Look at the nature of influencers and the like. These people with millions and millions and millions and millions of followers, right? Other than the ones that are doing videos for entertainment purposes, right? You look at these people talking about fitness stuff and the like, coming forth with absolute nonsensical, non-scientific related bollocks. Right? And just because these numbers are behind them doesn't make this bollocks that they're talking about any more true. We did it on the video last time. I literally Googled videos that prove the earth is flat and videos that prove the earth is round. And videos that prove the earth is flat had millions more views on than the other side of the coin. Now I ask you, which one has more evidence to support at this stage? Right? This type of verbal content is a logical flaw. It is a bias for you to scapegoat whatever reality has happened. It is a little like trying to answer one of the shower thoughts, in that if you drop soap on the floor, is the floor clean or the soap dirty? Right, in that scenario, what your real focus should be is on the action and proving cause and effect as to why the soap was dropped in the first place. This is what happened as part of the jury. So all she's done at this stage is belittle the process, further support as to her arrogance at this particular stage.
Words, how that felt.
This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through. I have never felt more removed from my own humanity. I felt less than human.
Let's go.
And if you notice as well at this stage, just as a side note, for every single one of you guys that complains that I keep clicking and stopping and talking, I don't care. There's been a few comments come in on some older videos about that. I addressed it earlier after the fact. I don't care, because this is an illustrative process, not about a reaction kind of thing. It's about an explanation and doing my best in my own sometimes cack-handed way to try and educate on part of the process, okay? Now, if you'll notice, from this, she drops her chin when she's talking about her own humanity. Body follows suit towards the words that you're talking about in this particular stage. Yeah? When she's trying to exude this, I was removed from my own humanity. Now, fair enough, right? She did have a lot of shit. No pun intended. But she did. Rightly or wrongly, it was rightly, but rightly or wrongly, she did have to face a lot of shit. But it was based on her actions at this particular stage, right? So if you are going to come out with a comment like that, and she may crack this on after the pause, or she may have done it in the actual interview and it be cut out or not, she may go in to speak about her own actions that have led to this kind of opinion of her at that particular stage. But if it is that you're going to focus on what happened to you in that scenario, when the evidence that caused that is based on you, further support for your arrogance, further support for the disbelief in what's happened, further support for somebody that's drank their own Kool-Aid far too many times.
Back to the day of the verdict. Were you feeling confident?
That's a great question. I wish I could say yes to that. I want to say yes to you, but it wouldn't be true. Even if you think that I'm lying, you still couldn't tell me, look.
Right. So look at that face here, in terms of the tightening around the lids, in terms of the partial kind of smile element that's coming forward here. Now, it might be a nervous smile, it might be an uncomfortable smile, whatever, but it's a smile nonetheless that's coming through. It's in the early stages. You can't tell me if she's following through this kind of single, narrow-minded viewpoint of what's happening. She'll be blaming the fairness of the trial or the impartiality of the jurors at this particular stage. Anything to accept some blame yourself. At the end of the day, this is a snowball that you started rolling, right? She wished she could say she was confident. Well, yeah, when the truth comes out, and it did, everyone around the world saw it. And there's huge amounts of egg on your face, so you go the only way that you can, the only way that you have option to. So if that's what happens, we know that we're on the right lines here moving forwards.
Look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation. There was another trial handled it dealt with the same substantive issues that had even more evidence in. In fact, my evidence was largely kept out. Really important pieces of evidence kept out. Done differently, handled differently by a judge instead of a jury.
Some evidence is
Oh boy, there's what I would refer to as a Freudian slip. It's not a technical Freudian slip, but it's a slip of information all the same, right? Now, there are those that would focus on things like hemispheric tendency and the like as a result, as opposed to trying to figure out why she is in her head this way. That doesn't have a great deal of relevance here, but what we can get is the dichotomy between the judge and the jury in this particular stage, right? One person is easier to get to than 12. Right? So if you're going to focus on that, then you must hold up the reflection of your own argument at that particular stage, right? If it is that 12 people can be easily swayed to give a viewpoint in your own view, then one person could. They both sit within the legal system at this particular stage on very different levels, I grant you. But on that way, why would you prefer one over the other? Right? Unless you are unconsciously favoring the one that supported you. For whatever reason, we can hypothesize about that until the cows come home. But when you're following the logic of your own argument, it falls in that situation. Her initial trial in London wasn't on TV, but it was publicized. There was people outside the courts. There was fans. There was enemies. I don't know what you call an anti-fan. There was people picketing and the like, and all of that kind of thing. So scenarios are very similar. And yet, jurors, oh no, they were swayed by public opinion. Judge, okay, no problem. Doesn't matter how much evidence they ignored as part of the process. He's okay. You've got to apply both elements when it comes to impartiality in either view, right? If you're going to examine them properly, and that type of argument falls by the wayside.
Admissible in a UK court that is not admissible in a US court. Do you think that maybe he just had better lawyers?
I will say his lawyers did certainly a better job of distracting the jury from the real issues.
For some people,
Lots go. Wow, lots going on in that scenario. I will say that his lawyers, if I would just exaggerate her movement, there we get at least 1 point towards a leak that could be related to her views on her own lawyers, right? That's just one view. There wasn't anything that contradicts that idea, so it's 1-0 in that way. Like Riggs and Murtaugh would call it, it's thin. But it's there, all the same. We got the initial stumbling and filler words, so there was some additional activity in the nervous system that has caused that heightened activity, and that's element that came forward from there. And yet there was the distraction that she spoke about just now. Either one of two things. That's, again, the coaching to try and support her particular view, or is delusional. And from where I'm sitting, I don't think you can split hairs about which one it is. It's either going to be one or the other. Right? It's either your coaching that's making you say that to try and say, Johnny's team bad, my team good, or you actually believe it, in which case you're delusional. Because for them to be distracting away from the real point of them being there, the point of them all being there was to see whether you were defamatory, whether all of the stuff that you actually said happened. Evidence was presented, and 12 people agreed it didn't happen. Therefore, defamation. That's why you have a rather large bill to pay. No? There's no other area that can go. Again, for my 2 pennies, for what they're worth. Happy to be proven wrong, but that's the only other elements that it could be at this particular stage. So if it is the coaching, fair enough. You've got a team of people, and it's like a performance, another acting test in this particular situation for you to get your lines out on cue, of course. But if it's the other side, then we've got further proof towards everything that we've said so far in this scenario, regarding the emotive states, regarding their position of arrogance, regarding the what is that in the comments? Wow, that'll get removed immediately.
They just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely. I would not blame the average person for looking at this and how it's been covered and not think that it is Hollywood brats at their worst. But
you would not blame the average person for looking at this based on the way it was covered, and yet you blamed all of the other fans and people with their signs at the back that you were previously blaming earlier. That's an incongruence there, right from the get-go. Again, further evidence of coaching. Change to subscriber only. I'm on it, Eric. I'll get it done after this. You know you're popular when you get spam bots. Well, there's nothing quite like Naked HD XYZ. We have more cheap sex than Tinder. Well, I wasn't aware that you could have sex on Tinder. I thought that was a dating app. Anyway, that's a digression that doesn't belong in this video, but there we are. Maybe I'll edit that part out.
what people don't understand is it's actually so much bigger than that. This is
You can see the anger starting to come out again in the nostrils, in the teeth being born moving forward, in the jaw tension. It's relaxed as she's moving forward from there, but it was a couple of frames earlier.
It's not only about our First Amendment right to speak.
But here's the thing about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't protect lies that amount to defamation. And that was the issue in the case.
Boom!
Yes, exactly. You can't go into... The free speech does not protect you if you go into a crowded theater and you scream fire. We get the concept of free speech from the Greeks. My understanding of what that means is not just the freedom to speak.
What the hell are you talking about, Amber? What are you talking about? You spent God knows how many days on the stand. You were allowed to speak. Your lawyers helped to facilitate your story, and then you were questioned about it by the other side. There was the whole objection hearsay debacle, but that was for both sides as well, so you weren't unjustly silenced in this particular situation. What are you talking about? I'm starting to see further support for delusions here in this particular situation, because the inhibitions are moving forward. There's more actions in the hands, right? They're not moving forward to illustrate en masse, i.e. further animation, because that would be kind of butchered as Amber reacts kind of Tom Cruise-esque kind of style and the like. But she's keeping it in, but it's symmetrical. There's further passion behind it. There's further engagement behind it. She's leaning forward more as well. There's further engagement in the lower back area. So the brakes are coming off.
It's a freedom to speak truth to power.
But truth is the word.
Yes.
And that was the issue.
And that's all I spoke. And I spoke it to power, and I paid the price.
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime, and said you were acting.
Okay, so let's see if we can do this. Performance of a lifetime, said you were acting. If we're going prepared response way, what will she say? Prepared response way. It'll be something along the lines of, well, people have been calling me a bad actor. How can I be acting the performance of my lifetime in a courtroom, right? Something along those lines. Or if it's stemming towards more emotions, and then these breaks are coming off further and further, you'll just get straight up denials or blaming of the other side and this kind of thing.
What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers.
Oh, shit. I was not expecting that. Oh, good. Okay. Oh, shit. Sorry. That surprised me. Holy fuck. Sorry, excuse my language, but oh my god, that surprised me. Further support then for delusional, which I really wasn't expecting at all to come up as a rebuttal to that question. I was following, well, I was trying to follow a kind of a logical breakdown of where you would go if you were being coached versus if you were being pushed too far. Coached versus having your, oh, this is irritating me kind of thing, but I've got a story to stick to, that kind of dichotomy. On behalf of the world, Miss Heard, we know he never had scissors for fingers. Nobody was convinced about that. How can you sit and say that with a straight face? I'm genuinely crying. How can you sit and say that with a straight face? Oh my god. That's going to keep me going for a while. Sorry. It was planned. You're right, Eric. It was. She had. Eric says the line was planned. She had it chambered and acted like it was a sick burn. It was. You could tell that from the end with the eyelids, scissors for fingers, and the like she was expecting to go after the fact. But this is somebody that's not really thought this through. This is somebody that spends too much time living in their own little universe, drinking their own proverbial Kool-Aid, so to speak, in this scenario. Wow. Oh, look at that, then. Yeah. Further support that it was planned.
I'm the performer. I had listened to weeks of testimony insinuating that, or saying quite directly that, I'm a terrible actress.
There you go. That's where the coaching comes back then, right? But you can see the hostility in terms of that response that leaks in terms of the nose, the teeth born, and the like. I'm not going to be able to pause that on cue, but yeah, her anger at that story is starting to come forward. So this is leaning more into the buttons being pushed territory.
So I'm a bit confused how I could be both.
The DEP team argued that you were the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I never had to instigate it. I responded to it. When you're living in violence and it becomes...
I never had to instigate to it. I responded to it. That's almost as bad as Boris Johnson's. I didn't know there was a party there, but we've got several people that said you were there. Well, I was there, but I thought it was a business meeting. Then why do we have this photo of you wearing a hat, drinking wine, and giving over some kind of a quiz? Okay, but I was there, right? The level of arrogance within this woman is genuinely impressive. Now, by no means am I qualified enough to make the diagnosis on that kind of thing, but I'm well read enough to have an opinion on the topic that it might link towards the personality problems that she has in terms of the whether it was a disability or a syndrome or whatever they termed it as part of the courtroom saga. Now, it could link towards that area because you are out of rapport with social links and social interaction because of those concerns, or that genuinely sits in your head and you are just as arrogant, and with that comes the narcissism, and with that comes the fastidious attention to the moving details in order to twist other people's opinions and views. I never had to instigate it, but I did respond to it. Really? Well, there are several audios of your own voice contradicting your own opinion.
Becomes normal, as I testified to. You have to adapt.
You say you were responding, but there is evidence. There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. They were first leaked online after being edited. What you would hear in those clips.
Oh dear. Right. So the oh God. This is coaching gone horribly wrong. This is coaching gone horribly wrong. Right? First of all, let's go back even further than that. She shouldn't have done this interview. Right? Because it sets the wrong precedent for her position within the whole saga. It does. So, in coaching in this scenario, she would have been better served to provide more of a human response in this scenario. We've heard you say that you did hit and you did this and you did this, right? Those are irrefutable points, rather than cling to some thinly created delusion of incredible editing skills. You're just going to be detracting away from whatever potential evidence that you have in the future, right? You are going to be the proverbial boy who cried wolf, only no wolf's coming to eat you.
Are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that says, he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight. I can't promise you I won't get physical again. I mean, this is in black and white. I understand context. But you're testifying and you're just telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is...
We got verbal tension. Testified on the stand about this. It's going up. I mean, I refer to it as a cheerleader voice, right? The quintessential kind of where everything at the end sounds like a question. Now, if that had fallen into her normal verbal syntax beforehand, we could write that off. It didn't. This is first appearance. First appearance. And yet, we've got increased tension, which is showing no signs in the body yet. It might be in the muscles, but it's not macro. It's remaining micro, if it's there at all. But what we have is audible leaks as to inhibitions, as to stunting your own responses in this area. So we know at this stage her emotions are engaged. We know they are. Which, when you explore the cause and effect rationale, be it deductive or inductive reasoning, one of the two, cause and effect being that you were in the wrong in this scenario and there's no way to reason your way out of that response. You've said that you started fights. And then we're back to the Boris Johnson response afterwards.
At risk. Not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the resources that...
Did you hear that then? Emotionally, physically, it's all there. And whereas that does go on in narcissistic and abusive relationships, you are psychologically bullied almost into accepting responsibility for things that you could not possibly have instigated, or of situations you could not possibly have created, right? That's widespread knowledge, and with her being an advocate for abuse victims, that'll be information that she'll be well aware of, right? Which is a fine trigger to try and pull out and drop down on the table. However, when your body, your mind, not in a spiritual sense, but what's going on in here, when that is betraying these thoughts, that gives further rise to further questions. That gives rise to further insight after the fact. Okay. Ideally, I'd like to see where her feet are positioned throughout the whole thing, which we wouldn't get as part of the this chopped up nonsense here. But there's only ever been callbacks to this area. We couldn't even see from the clothes the positions of the lower legs.
Say you or I do with the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white, because it's anything but when you're living in it.
But then there are other times, there's another tape where you're taunting.
And correct me if I'm wrong, she didn't actually say anything there. There was nothing really said in terms of anything categorical one way or the other. She just spoke for a few minutes. But again, she's heard taunting, fortunate pause all the same, but we've gone straight into a slow blink, which is an eye block move. Leaning back as well in this area, tension in the jaws. We've got tension in the neck as well, which we can see from the presentation of the I call it an anti-wrinkle. When you've been folding it down and then you stretch it back, you can still see it moving forwards from there.
Him and saying, "Oh, tell the world, Johnny Depp, I, a man, am a victim of domestic violence."
20-second clips or the transcripts of them are not representative of even the 2 hours or the 3 hours that those clips are excerpt from.
Could your side have...
So let's have a situation. There is a hypothetical courtroom. There is a guy being charged with murder. A guy being charged with murder. Some other person was, I don't know, let's say, shot. Let's say shot in that situation. On the audio, you can hear the 20 seconds. I, Mr. Murderer, I'm about to kill you, Mr. Victim. And then you hear a body fall down. As part of his rebuttal, when in the courtroom, Mr. Murderer says, those 20 seconds are not representative of the 2 or 3 hours that led up to that fact. Okay, but that ain't the question. The question is, who's the abuser? The question is, who's the killer in that hypothetical I created? The question is, did you abuse Johnny? Did he abuse you? So far, the information presented indicates you abused him, not the other way around. And funnily enough, the entire complete audios are available online, and I will wager that in not one of them does Johnny throw a punch at her. If he does, it's throw a punch, that is, it will be towards a cupboard or a tabletop or something like that.
Have just put the whole 3 hours in then?
I'm not a lawyer. As I testified to, I was talking in those recordings as a person in extreme amount of emotional, psychological, and physical distress.
He
And
says
it
he
doesn't-
never hit you.
He can't-
Never. Is that
yeah.
a lie?
Yes, it is.
What about the witnesses who said...
See, that was good. That was a good response, right? That was a good response from her to answer that question. Yes, it is. We're not talking about contractions, non-contractions. It was within the same kind of movement pattern. It was within the same kind of speed. The eye contact was there. There was no pupillary movements. That was a good response. That was a good response. So in those kind of situations, what you have to do in this kind of investigative angle is to go towards the evidence, go towards the information, go towards the things that you've seen previously, go towards the things that you've seen after, in order to provide further context towards that one response. And when we do that, there is more evidence that indicates you're a liar. It just means that you're a good one. Right?
They have seen you instigate physical violence.
I've seen firsthand how people will file rank and support the person they depend on.
Did they all come in and lie in court?
I am not here to call any of his witnesses any names. I'm here to just kind of talk about it from what it felt like for me. Is
all of this stuff that's going on, right? There is you could make arguments towards asymmetrical responses. You could make arguments towards disingenuous responses based on the fact that there's no kind of symmetry in the motion. But if you look in terms of the usual movements that create that kind of behavior in her, right? I mean, let's not forget, right, when the whole thing first came out, I did around like kind of 19 hours worth of viewing of this kind of material in this area. So her kind of normal pattern in this area is, this is something I don't really want to talk about, right? I don't really want to talk about it in this area, which is a link. It's a link towards an egocentric position in terms of the magnanimous responses that facilitate the kind of looking down your nose in that way. A link, only a link, nothing more. But what we can say about the number of them going up, because that was a lot in that situation, that her nervous system is engaged. There is a lot of electricity going around, which would indicate the anxiety going up, and we can see that in further blink rates changing as well.
Is the person who sat there.
When I asked his lawyers, why do you think you won? And the answer I got was, because she never took responsibility for anything she did.
Which you haven't done this entire interview.
In the marriage.
I did do and say horrible, regrettable things throughout my relationship. I behaved in horrible, almost unrecognizable to myself ways. I have so much regret. I freely and openly and voluntarily talked about what I did. I talked about the horrible language. I talked about being pushed to the extent where I didn't even know the difference between, right.
But if you listen towards what she's saying in this scenario, right? I talked freely, openly, honestly about being pushed towards this, So regardless of whether she did or whether she didn't, in her head at this particular stage, she's still not to blame. Right? That's more statement analysis than anything else. But these are the little elements that all add up to a bigger picture. Still not willing to accept any kind of responsibility for what you've done.
Right and wrong. I will always continue to feel like I was a part of this, like I was the other half of this relationship, because I was. And it was ugly and could be very beautiful. It was very, very toxic. We were awful to each other. I made a lot of mistakes.
So if the situation's going to keep going the way her lip currently indicates that it's going, and it's a big if, because it's based only on her lip at this stage, she's going to try and cry. That's the same lip that we saw throughout her stories about her abuse in this particular stage. Same movement, same direction, same indication, same slackness, same presentation of her lower teeth, same presentation of the upper, what would be her left side, as well. So it's, unless this has been cut out as well, that'll be my scapegoat if I get it wrong. Oh dear. But that's why nobody, if you're following the lady's question from previous, if people are saying you never accepted any kind of responsibility for this, this is why. But this again gives further support to the delusional nature of herself. How the realities of a situation can be misconstrued to support your own ends.
A lot of mistakes. But I've always told the truth.
There's a text message where...
So that's, you can hear times passed after that scenario.
Johnny promises total global humiliation for you. Do you feel like that came true?
I know he promised it. I testified to this. I'm not a good victim, I get it. I'm not a likable victim. I'm not a perfect victim. But when I testified, I asked the jury to just see me.
I'm not a good victim. I'm not a likable victim. What the hell? What you've completely shot yourself in your own foot there, and however many people that are going to come marching after you, regardless of whether they are justifiably a victim or not. I'm not a good victim. Wow. And not a good wow. I mean, I've only ever met 3 sincere abuse victims in real life. I've read thousands and thousands of interviews of people that have come forward and spoken about the topic. But I'm not a good victim. Further support towards the arrogance, further support towards the narcissism, right? Further support towards the inhibitions, again, that we saw in terms of her physical movement when she was on the stand with this kind of position, the relaxed nature, the composure. Right? It reminded me of Joey practicing for headshots. We look down, and then we look up, just to gather yourself. Right? The performing head is still on. Is still on here. The performing head is still on. Miss Riff Raff as well, rightly pointing out that she said in court she never wanted to be viewed as a victim either. Get your story straight, love.
As human, and hear his own words, which is a promise to do this. It feels as though he has.
Having been found liable, are you nervous, as we are here today, about what you can say now?
Of course. I took for granted what I assumed was my right to speak.
Do you feel like you could be sued again by him for defamation?
I'm scared that no matter what I do, no matter what I say or how I say it, every step that I take will present another opportunity for this sort of silencing, which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do. It's meant to take your voice.
Wow. Gone back towards the advocacy terms. Gone back towards those to try and strike up some emotional charging amongst whoever it is that still supports her. Oh dear. Yeah. This interview was not a smart play from you, Amber. Or it may have been your team, whoever it is. Whoever it was that said, yeah, she'll do it. Or yeah, I'll do it. That wasn't a smart decision to make. At all. Especially giving everything that you've shown to us so far today.
Life had seemingly moved on, and you decide to write an op-ed. Why did you do that?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
But it alluded to him. It was unmistakable.
You know, what the op-ed was about was, me loaning my voice to a bigger cultural conversation that we were having at the time.
Did you worry? Gosh, I'd love to be a person weighing in on these cultural issues, but that's going to stir this all up again.
I obviously knew it was important for me not to make it about him or...
So this bit is chopped up as well. This bit is chopped up as well. But if it's important for me to not make it about him, you are betraying the fact that it's about him in some way. Right? Because there's your inspiration. It's important for me to not make it about him. Those words aren't relevant if it's nothing to do with him.
Or to do anything like defame him. I had lawyers, teams of lawyers, review all the drafts of this.
When you wrote this op-ed, it was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. Of course not. It wasn't about him. This was...
You see the eyelid betrayal? Now again, you cannot base anything on one single element. You can't. And if you're trying to, or other people are telling you you can, they're lying to you. They are. But that's an indication of heightened nervous system engagement. It is. So we have to ask ourselves, why is that present there when it wasn't previously? And it keeps coming up in these intermittent connected points that are towards emotionally charged questions. She didn't have any kind of similar eye behaviors when she was talking about losing her voice. This is why we would investigate it further.
Is a hoax, is according to his team. Why didn't I cooperate with the police? As I've testified before, and I will stand by until my dying day, I didn't want to cooperate with them. I didn't want this to be out. I didn't want this to be known. I didn't want to cooperate with them because I didn't want this to be, I didn't want to get him in trouble. If it was...
This is when TMZ are going,
It was a hoax, I could have done that.
But 5 days later, you went to court and it came out.
5 days later, I made the decision to stand up for myself and protect myself. You can't get a restraining order in private, which of course I didn't understand the night when the cops were called.
An employee of TMZ testified at court and said that TMZ was tipped off about when you were going to be going to the courthouse and on what side of your face bruises would be apparent. Did you tip off TMZ?
I was gonna say, he certainly didn't get tipped off by me or anyone in my...
Did anyone you know tip off TMZ?
Why would they? No.
You asked no one to do that.
As I testified to before, it had nothing to do with me.
They're different.
but you can see same markers in the nose, and nothing to do. I'm over exaggerating it from my face. It had nothing to do with me. She's taking up less and less space, which is something people who are about to commit larceny do as well. There's a similar kind of biological imperative, fear before explosion. Why would that be here? That's a valid question to be answered on a behavioral level, right? The indications being that there is information that's causing you discomfort. Why would it be causing you discomfort to say something that's true?
Incidents that you testified to, and the DEP legal team would put up pictures of you publicly right after that or in the days following and saying that why are there no bruises?
Again, it's that thing. If you have bruising, if you have injuries, it's fake. If you don't have any, then you weren't injured.
You had promised to donate.
Good argument, right? Good logical argument that I imagine gets manipulated through media outlets many, many times. It's a good argument. But the ones that you did show didn't follow the logical train of events that you were talking about. That's why people went towards BS.
The $7 million of your divorce
Here
settlement
we go.
to charity. It was revealed at trial that you haven't done so yet. However, they played a tape where you stayed on the air that you have donated it.
So the hands cross the top of the legs now, right? So we can only follow the narrative in this video as we've seen it. I haven't seen the full one. If somebody wants to link me the full one or tell me where I can get it, cool. I'll watch it after the fact. But based on what we've seen here so far in this video, we're following the climbing up, the climbing up, the climbing up, the climbing up, the climbing up. This is fear continually, over and over and over and over. Fear, nerves, anxiety. You don't do that if you're about to come forward and speak the truth. Nerves might show in somebody who's inexperienced in the TV domain or inexperienced with all of these lights and cameras and sights and sounds and people talking about them. Not a Hollywood actress. Thank you, Eric. I shall get in touch, mate.
Do you think that raised questions as to your credibility with the jury?
I made a pledge, and that pledge is made over time by its nature. And
When you say I donated, you know that everybody thinks that you...
She knows she's been caught there. By her, specifically.
You've donated it, not that you've pledged it. So for the jurors sitting there, do you think they felt like that was you getting caught in a lie?
I don't know, because so much of I feel like so much of the trial was meant to cast aspersions on who I am as a human, my credibility, to call me...
Answer the question! Just answer it. When you're being so evasive like that, for risking shining any kind of light on you, regardless of whether you read behaviors or whether you don't. People smell blood, proverbially speaking, and they charge after it. Which is why you just need to be open. You look at what he did as part of his trial. Yeah, I abused myself. I had a problem with drugs. I had a problem with drink. Yeah, I hit some cupboards. I was angry. All of this. Asked and answered. Simply. Straight refusal to do this.
Me a liar in every way you can. And
That was the trial. It was a credibility contest.
And
that was it.
This is another one of the examples where if you pull back and you think about it, I shouldn't have to have donated it in an effort to be believed. I shouldn't have had to earmark the entirety of that in order to have...
Wow. Look at the backtracking, the betrayal. The betrayal of her own information, not that she's been betrayed. The betraying in the information, the retreats, the closing up, the asymmetry going on, far too much actively modifying of your speech. So either this part wasn't coached, or it just wasn't coached very well.
Shouldn't have, but once you said you did.
Right, which is where it was intended to go.
How do you see your...
You can hear all of the pauses as well as she starts to plot it through. You can hear the tension in the voice start to leak out. This is all information for active modification of what you're speaking about at the time, based on a dissonance of sorts between here and here. Two conflicting ideas.
Future now.
I get to be a mom, like, full time, you know, where I'm not having to juggle calls with lawyers.
One day you may want to tell your daughter about this or have to tell your daughter about everything that you've gone through. What would you want to say?
I think no matter what, it will mean something. I did the right thing. I did everything I could to stand up for myself and the truth.
On the first day of the trial, you issued a statement, and part of the statement said, I still have love for Johnny.
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
After everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love him. I loved him with all my heart. And I tried the best I could to make a deeply broken relationship work. And...
I'm not doing any more of that. Right? Eric, shade tree lawyer. Yeah, I'm familiar with the term. Definitely. Definitely. Right? You want to go be a mum? Cool. You go be a mum. But go. Doing this kind of stuff is counterproductive to your cause at the moment, if that's what you want. Because it's indicating to everyone else around you at the time that you did this interview that it is not what you want. Right? And again, to go back to all of the kind of victim talk, there is no way that any victim would say that they love their alleged abuser. Loved? Maybe. But it wouldn't be as declarative as that. There would be a context, there would be a reframing of sorts, because it doesn't align with where they are now. Either as somebody righteously going towards, some kind of vindication, or somebody, a broken shell of what they used to be. Either scenario doesn't allow you to say nice things about the person that's apparently abused you. Oh, dear God. I hope she goes and bees a mum. I hope she goes and bees a mum. Which is nowhere near proper English, but you know what I mean. Wow. I almost don't want to watch the full one now. I mean, I'm gonna, but there's a lot of things going on around the loved him. It was a little like a slip within the official party line of your story. I have love for him. I have loved him. I love him. Right? I mean, in any case, if you've stuck with us for the full hour so far, then you will know that there is far too much information that works against her at this particular stage than anything that could possibly work for her. There we go. So if you got anything out of that, guys, awesome. If you didn't, then I would perhaps ask yourself some more reflective questions regarding why you're actually still here. But as I say, if you did enjoy it and you're not already subscribed, make sure you click on the old subscription button below. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and you get to make a hairy guy very happy. But thank you to every single one of you that's joined in for this live. I do appreciate your time and your insight yourself from the comments below. And hopefully this will be the last that we'll hear of the whole thing. Hopefully. Although, given what we know about it, I very much doubt that it will be. But with that in mind, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. I'll see you all later.